Oh, okay. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to the October 4th meeting of the Building Subcommittee. A couple of things just to let the committee know something. Where I have to leave at 6:20 for a 6:30 meeting, so if we're able to get it within 6:20, that would be great. If not, that's I just want to let you know while I'll be running out, but hopefully we can get it done in an hour and 20 minutes. And also, there is an attendance sheet going around for the subcommittee. If you can make sure that you sign it to show that you were in attendance, I want to get that in to make sure that the minutes are reflected properly, and I believe we have a quorum, which is great. We'll start off with public comment. I'm going to get that sheet. Any members of the public, we just ask that you try to keep within 3 minutes if you could. And after we're done with the 4 individuals, if someone has a question and didn't sign up, you're more than welcome to just raise your hand. We'll have you come up. And first person is Mary Warbeck.
Hello again. I wanted to commend you all for the great presentation at the first forum. It's really exciting to feel that things are taking shape. As we all now work to support and sell the bond referendum, I've become aware of a couple of things. People seem to be very impressed with the tens of millions of dollars we can save through the soon-to-expire bonus reimbursements. They also seem to be unaware of the money to be saved with a highly efficient net zero school. It's recognized that setting an efficiency goal and energy use intensity at the beginning of a project like our new middle school and sticking close to it throughout the process is essential. What energy use intensity specifically are we hoping to achieve? Given known data for our past energy use, along with annual costs for the 2 older middle schools combined that we are replacing, and using the proposed EUI for our new highly efficient middle school, hypothetically, by what percentage could our annual energy costs be decreased and provide year after year savings? After all, schools are our #1 budget item, and after salaries, energy is our highest cost. We know the potential for unprecedented huge savings through bonus state reimbursements, but from speaking to the public, the annual savings on energy that the town will accrue seem not to be apparent. Could you speak to this now? And I was flipping through the thing and it seems like you're going to. And also incorporate that information more emphatically into the second forum. It's of great import to the public. And also, a couple of us went to the open house at a couple of schools, and at Davisville Middle School, one thing that really struck me, and I hear a lot of people talk about, is parking. And with sports programs in effect, in the entire back lot was full halfway all the way up with people who came to go to the sports events. And then people who came to the open house, I know that's more than usual, but it spilled way out on the street. So I think it's probably important also to, take note of of parking for the sports events. Thank you.
We'll cover some of those tonight. Actually, real quick. Thank you. Megan Riley.
Hi, my name's Megan Riley. Do I need my address?
No.
Okay. I have a number of questions, and so that I don't get cut off, I'm going to try to speak quickly. And I don't know how you want to, if you want to answer them now, or if you want to maybe hopefully get this information out to the voters. But when we go to the polls between October 18th and November 7th, I'd like to know if the following would be known, and I mean specifically at that time. Is the DMS site guaranteed? Can anyone here guarantee the DMS site will be viable? The remediation costs at that site, if any? What will be done with Wickford Middle School and Davisville Academy, and where will the administration building be located? Dr. Duva said additional analysis of Roots neighborhood student population will be forthcoming, in addition to the transportation study that was presented last night, but I'm wondering if that will be forthcoming prior to when we vote. Will their required phase 2 ESA study be started and completed and its findings released so that we the voters can understand what those findings showed? The geotechnical report, which will be discussed this evening, will there be any more of it, or is this the only thing we're gonna be discussing this evening? Second point, given the maintenance that the DMS projects required, and given that they were grant funded, will we have to pay any of that back if DMS is torn down? And if so, how will we, the voters, and when be made aware of that information? Will that be prior to the vote? There's a lot of misinformation out there about the bond. People are saying that we only approve it as voters or not. And if we approve it, that the money does not have to be used right away. But if you look at RIDE, the stages that are required, we have to have a contract signed with the construction company by June 30th of 2024. And I would assume that would take some preparation and funding money to go into that. So I don't know, I think that this needs to be extremely clear to the voters. I want to know, Mr. Mollis, are you going to be budgeting any of the bond payment for the 2025 fiscal year? Will we have to start to pay immediately when we deal with Ryback? That's important information to know. And there are many deadlines that in order to receive the incentives. So we have to hit all of those deadlines, or we do not get any of those incentives back. And we also have to get this project completed within, 3 years. So we need to know about the bond information, and I think that's important prior to November 7th. Finally, Bob Jones made some comments last night at the school committee meeting, and I'm wondering how and when his comments will be addressed, because the enrollment issue was actually a serious concern that he had, and I also agreed with him when I heard him talking about it. Is the transportation study that was done yesterday, is that based on the 2023 school year enrollment? Or is it based on the projected 2026 enrollment numbers? Finally, the fleet expansion that they discussed, is that necessarily going to offset all of these supposed energy efficiency savings that we're going to be having if we're going to have to expand our fleet of buses? And I don't know if we will or not, but that's the problem. We don't know if we will or not. So I'm just hoping that these questions, all or some of them at least, could be answered prior to early voting, which is in less than 2 weeks now, or November 7th, which is the final date to vote, because they're all really important questions, and to be honest with you, many of us don't feel like we have had those answered yet, so to make an informed decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Megan, if I just may, I'm sorry, but if I just may follow up quickly?
Sure.
Can you, if you can?
Rob, you can follow up all night long.
I just wanted to, so, because I'm not sure we're responding to your questions. Is it something that you want us to attempt to, do you want to email us the questions and we attempt to answer you? Because you mentioned that you want to make sure the public knows too, but a lot of this information may be in a presentation or two that maybe people aren't finding or whatnot. I want to make sure we're getting you, and maybe they're not. And so I guess the question is, would you like to email us? But I wrote down most of them.
I think I have, I think they were 11, and I think I have all 11.
That's 11
But
for
if you
tonight, but yeah, sure, yeah,
You did
to
better than
start.
me, 'cause I
But
had
I know
none.
I only have 3 minutes.
You can send it
To be
us
perfectly
that
clear
way.
with you, I think you all know that I have tried to find answers to many of these questions without having to bother people. I don't feel like I have found them, and I feel like if I haven't found them, probably many people haven't been able to find them. So to be honest with you, if you want to take that list, I'd be happy to email you the list. But the thing is, we vote really soon. So like an answer here, a half an answer there is, you know what I mean? So if I can give you that, I'll send you that list tonight.
So I'm gonna be, and again, please, if you disagree, please let me know. Maybe my personal opinion, professional opinion, whatever you call it. So I would recommend that you email the superintendent and myself.
Okay.
With all your questions. If I would then contact the superintendent, because I think some of these questions he's gonna be able to answer, some I'm gonna be able to answer, but I want us to both be on the same page in answering. We would then send you a response. I guess the only thing that I think we'll do a bad job in, I'll do a bad job in, is that I don't know if we're going to, there's no way to get this out into the public.
I know, and
So I'm
that's,
gonna get it to
that,
you, and then,
right.
because.
And this
when
is
you
where the
vote-
big issue is, because what am I supposed to do with it?
Well,
You
but some
know, I'm only one
information is
voter.
public, some information is public, so, please.
And
go
I
ahead.
can say, some of this we can add to FAQs. We have an FAQ we're getting
Perfect.
out, so some of this we can. You asked, will, all these questions be able to be provided in the next 2 weeks? Can't guarantee.
That's fine, but
we
can you say that?
But we
Like,
can-
it would be helpful if you
but
just
we can
said,
we can
no, this will
get as
not be
much as we
answered
can
by the
get.
time we vote.
So-
Cause like, if you don't answer it, people might think, oh, the answer's there, and we'll get it at some point, but if you can just say, this will not be completed by that time, I think that's an answer.
If
that would be
you can get
helpful.
that over to us, and maybe we can try to find a way to productively work it into the presentation on the 12th.
Sure.
And that's one way of getting out to the public.
I appreciate that.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Bob, sorry.
Yeah, no,
Minutes.
good. Excellent answer. I wrote down my comments and one question. So there should be enough for the committee. I'm Bob Vanderslice. I'm at 151 Prospect. 4 comments and a question. To Mr. Mullis and the NK staff, thank you for your past efforts at making NK more resilient, energy efficient, and my condolences because, as we all know, the reward for hard work is more work, and that's the nature of my next comment. To Mr. Mullis and the school department staff, members of the school committee, please make a request for a free energy audit. So the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank Director has mentioned that they're anxious to do this for towns. I've given his contact information. To members of the building subcommittee, I think we have an opportunity to install solar on any roof that gets redone. So we've talked about redoing almost all the roofs in the schools. Even if the state will not pay for the additional costs of making a roof solar ready and installing panels, solar tends to pay for itself over time. It may take many years to recoup the solar construction costs through lower energy bills, but there are more than 20,000 registered voters in North Kingstown who will be grateful for this effort at trying to hold down expenses and taxes in the long term. Both RIDE and the Infrastructure Bank can provide help with respect to financing and possible grants on going solar. And I've given the contact for RIDE. He spoke at our forum a few months ago in town. Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank is offering $10 to $12 million in grant funds for resiliency constructions in towns. They recently did away with the $500,000 limit on grant applications. And it's my understanding that NK appears to be aware of these opportunities. But I don't know, has a grant been submitted under that program? Do you know the status of that?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay. So if not, then again, a discussion with the Infrastructure Bank about that, those grant opportunities would seem in order. And lastly, the recent forum on bonds, and that was a great forum, so thank you all. I really appreciated the fact that you were getting good questions in a civil manner and really thoughtful answers. So great job, everybody who's there. But a member of the public decried the wasted resource of our school gymnasiums. And the barriers to after-hours use of school buildings are substantial. I've experienced this myself, just trying to get a forum on mental health. So I get it. But it is easier right now for the rec department to build a $25 million rec center than it is for them to use our gymnasiums after hours. And so right now we're talking about beefing up the security at schools, and that needs to get done. But when we're doing that, if it's security that makes these gymnasiums access difficult, then can we think about, as we get security for the front door, maybe boosting security so now it becomes trivial to use those gymnasiums after hours. It still doesn't prevent the need to lock up and maybe have a janitor come in and clean up, but it would be great if we could, even if the bond passes and we get a rec center, have neighborhood gymnasiums accessible.
We can look into it, 'cause I'm not sure why, with all the gyms that we have in the schools, that it's a challenge to get use in them. So we'll look into that for you.
Yeah. To use the school for any purpose. It's tough after hours. And there are a lot of barriers, and they're real. I get it. But to have to get signed liability forms and this kind of stuff, there's a lot that has to get done, but maybe the first step is to address security concerns, because I think safety and security is paramount on everyone's minds, right? Oh, if we let them do that, what's gonna happen?
And I will say the energy audit has already been requested.
Oh,
I did that
great.
myself.
Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Bob. Mary LaPresti?
Good afternoon. My name is Mary Preston, and I live at 29 Chestnut Road in North Kingstown. As the parent of a wheelchair-bound child who attended the North Kingstown schools for 13 years prior to his passing 2 months ago, I became very familiar with the accessibility of 4 different schools in the district as a matter of necessity. On a number of occasions, I needed to be proactive in advocating for playground equipment suitable to his physical and neurological needs, and wondered why my involvement wasn't even necessary if our school buildings and playgrounds are required to be ADA compliant. What I discovered is that there can be a difference between handicap accessible and handicap friendly, the latter of which requires input from parties who will be impacted on a daily basis by design and implementation decisions that might be made by well-meaning professionals who do not have a stake in how the quality of a student's school experience can be impacted by how they move about their day. Prior to parenting a special needs child, my only direct experience with someone who needed assistance in navigating the world outside our home was with my father-in-law who was blind. The all too frequent struggle to find a handicap parking spot that was ADA compliant was a regular occurrence. And that continued with my son Michael when he was transferred in and out of our van. Meaning if there was a handicap quote-unquote handicap parking spot that did not have an access aisle that was ADA compliant. So I haven't really looked in this parking lot. You can see them anywhere. If they're only a few feet, it's impossible to open the handicap van ramp and allow the person to be wheeled out safely. So I just wanted to clarify that. While Michael is no longer with us, there are numerous other children in our school district who rely on mobility devices to access their educational services, and encountering handicap-friendly classrooms, private changing rooms for those with incontinence needs, outdoor play areas, common meeting rooms, and conveniently located entrances and exits with doors that open and close easily are a few of the needs that come to mind. I am here to share my experience and to volunteer to serve as a resource with a wealth of real-life knowledge to contribute toward making our new middle school one that everyone from North Kingstown can be proud of and will enhance the quality of life for our vulnerable, physically challenged students, as well as faculty, staff, and families. Thank you.
Mary, thank you for your comments, and again, thank you for your offer to assist. You know, I'm just going to speak from myself, and I know that, you know, all of us have the very best of intentions, but there's nothing better than real life experience. And I know we're going to be able to use your experience to assist us in making sure that we do the right thing by individuals that we may not realize their hardships, what they're going through. So thank you for your assistance.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is to approve the previous meeting minutes. I know one individual had reached out to me with a question, so Adam.
Yep, if I can ask for, or suggest some amendments, if we can remove Dante from the list of attendees and add myself. And then in the question and answer section, I don't know if this would be the best place for it, but we had I had some site questions that I think would be important to the public, including that bit about the federal oversight on the property. So if we can have those added to the minutes, please, or I suggest that they be added to the minutes, please.
So there's a motion in order to approve the minutes as amended by removing Dante as having attended, adding Adam White as having attended, and inserting some language relative to the questions that Adam had posed relative to the site feasibility at Davisville Middle School. Comfortable with that? So is there a motion in order? Motion? Second. All in favor to adopt the minutes as amended? Aye. Any opposed? Excellent. Next item, I'll turn over to the superintendent, and we'll be talking about some presentation we have this evening.
Thank you. So the next two items that are on the agenda under number 4, we're going to have a presentation on the geotechnical report, and then we also have an updated presentation from Perkins Eastman. So at this point, I will hand this over Thank you. Good to see you soon.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Duba. I'm gonna ask Tina to introduce the team, and then we'll get right into the slideshow. We're gonna try to move it fairly quickly and see if we can get out of here at a reasonable time. So, Tina?
Great, thank you. Thank you, everyone. I'm glad to hear that a lot of people were at the public forum. So tonight, we have with us Joe Costa, myself, Tina Greco. Ryan Dirks has not been with us at one of these meetings before. He heads up our sustainability. He's going to be the sustainability lead on this project from Perkins Easing. We have Brian Meering from PAR, and he is going to be giving us an update on the geotechnical report that just was completed. And then behind us is Steve D'Ambrosia, and he's from Traverse, our landscape architect who has been developing the site. And then Inga Knox, everyone knows, from Jacobs. So with that, as Joe described, this is a project update. I'm just gonna mention that traffic we actually had a meeting this morning with traffic. They did take make some observations and did some traffic counts on September 27th. They are taking that information that they've received and going to be doing a report, and the report is expected in about 3 weeks. Now we'll move on to the geotechnical, and Brian has a slide up here to describe where the borings were taken, and will give us a little overview on that.
Remember, that's a touch screen, so.
I was just gonna
Get
warn.
close.
Yeah.
I won't. I'll try not to
Close.
touch it. You can,
If you talk with your hands, you may advance the slide.
I'll try. Give it a good foot and a half. Where should I stand? You can stand anywhere. Yeah.
So, Brian Deering with PAR, we went out on site to do a preliminary geotechnical investigation. So, under this stage of the project, we go out and we'll do a spread of borings to generally evaluate the site for suitability and look at the subsurface profile. So these are the 6 boring locations, and generally what we encountered were 8 to 10 feet of fill, and then in some areas like around boring 2 and 4, there was like 25 feet of fill. But it's pretty typical with site grading, when they put an existing school there and then they grade out the field. And the material that we encountered was, generally very, very fine sand, fine to medium grain sand. And, if it weren't for a few roots from the previous subgrade, you wouldn't really be able to tell. So that material can be reused. And, some of the preliminary recommendations we gave were, first, you can look at over excavating 10 feet of soil and then blending that material and reusing it on site. Or an alternative, if you have deeper fills as you get more into the project, is rammed aggregate piers or ground improvement technique. And that really helps with, you don't have to do anything with the soil at the site. It's really improving the soil and densifying it to be able to put just a typical spread footing foundation. And, so that's an alternative that's very typical with sites like this. And then, generally the water is at around 6 feet below the surface, so with the site grades, it doesn't, it's not gonna be, too big of an issue. Trying to think of what else we ran into. Yeah, that's generally it. Moving forward, we would look to get it, as the building layout and everything is more defined, we would get more borings within the field area and, kind of identify if there's any deeper fills or anything like that. But generally, you could go with the aggregate pier or ground improvement approach, and it would cover any of those issues ahead of time. So,
Brian, did you hit any shallow rock in those holes that you did? Do you expect to hit shallow rock, or geologically you're gonna see more of the same?
Yeah, I would expect to see more of the same, yeah. It was pretty uniform going across the site, yeah. It was not too bad. And you have some really, the topography comes up as you're going out to the old basketball court, so that's where you could tell they probably piled up the material to make a hill. So that's where you had a little deeper fill on that trail.
You might just mention you had said something about 6 feet down regarding water.
Yeah, so when we drill the holes, we let them sit, and then we let the natural groundwater level kind of equalize over a period of time, and then we measure that, and we also look for, iron oxide staining, so you can see where the water may have been within that profile. Sometimes you can't see it, a lot of times you can, especially in the fine sands like this. So it was around 6 feet below the existing ground surface. And I think the grade's gonna come up a little bit, so it'll be even further below that. So usually when you have to put in something to deal with the groundwater, like a drain system underneath the foundation, it's when it's within 5 feet of the finished floor slab. So it looks promising that you wouldn't have to incorporate that.
Does anyone have any questions or?
Can the public ask?
What about contaminants?
Based on the fill, so the reason that we recommend removing fill, so is because it was placed in an undocumented, uncontrolled manner. So even though it looks like nice material, and a lot of times you drill, 6, so these holes are about 2 inches in size. They're very small. They look big on the plan, but they're very small. But you don't know what they placed in the fill as it goes across the site, but generally speaking, based on the type of material, it looks like what they had on site, they then reused and spread across the site, so the odds of it being contaminated are low, but I'll let the environmental report, speak to that.
Bob, did you have a question?
Well, at the last presentation, they talked about doing some preliminary chemical analysis for contaminants. So was that done or no?
That would be the environmental group.
Okay.
I would assume they would do it. I think, on a project of this size, you always.
That was referenced for the phase 2.
That's the quiz site,
Yeah.
it's not this site.
Different site.
It's a different site.
Yeah.
No. For this site, so the problem is the timing, right? So people want answers before the bond vote, and if there was gross contamination, then it would be great to have just some preliminary chemical analysis that would state, no, we didn't see anything, and if it's mostly sand, then you're probably not anyway, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't smell anything.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
there
Brian?
was, there
I hope
was,
there's none.
Brian, we have an answer for that.
oh, what I was gonna say is, so an ESA was done, that phase 1 ESA, which takes desktop available information and makes, that is not going down and testing for chemicals, but it is taking, and Brian, please,
Yeah.
interject as needed, but you probably remember Dave Potter from PAR explaining that they've done that ESA that's looking at, a sort of a survey of environmental history of the site. The next steps will be a phase 2, and then more geotechnical work will also be done.
Right, and we were hoping that maybe an interim would be a preliminary analysis, just to quell rumors, but
We don't see.
Well, the
it's not.
ESA phase 1, the environmental, which is actually posted, that lists the kinds of things that they've discovered at that phase. There's continued work that will follow.
Thanks.
We won't put that into force.
Okay, got to do it. You wanna,
What you're worried about is
I
our.
don't know what you wanna talk about this, or what you want to skip over this.
Oh, yeah, I would say, I think we
Skip
Yeah.
over this.
put that in as part of the slide deck, but we've
Yeah.
gone through those slides in past meetings. so.
Yeah, we're just the vision for the project is exciting, and we always like to keep that in the depth. Okay, so then we can go on to the next slide. And this one is, this couples with the vision for the project. Then sustainability, and we have Ryan Dirks, who I just introduced, and he's gonna, there's a, the spectrum of sustainability is something that we have talked about. Ryan's gonna focus a little bit more on some specifics related to EY and net zero energy, but starting with this next slide.
Yeah. Great. So we like to start every conversation about sustainability with just our general approach, because it means a lot of things to different people. First and foremost, how does the building support learning, and how does that overlap with things that affect the wellness of people, and how does it affect the health of students, even things like, outdoor learning opportunities, natural light, neurodiversity, even accessibility, I think could fall under that umbrella. Issues like wellness that we see, indoor air quality, things like acoustics, these are all shown to have positive outcomes when we can improve them for the students. The thing I want to dive into today is high performance building and energy efficiency. So how can we really reduce the energy that's used in the building? Potentially, looking at net zero energy as the goal for the project, and how that can really dramatically reduce the life cycle cost over a long lifespan of the building. And so we'll certainly get into more information in the coming weeks as we develop this further and present some of that next week. But I just want to speak to that at a high level today. So you can go to the next slide. So I really appreciate the term EUI that came up earlier, that's energy use intensity. Basically, this is just the sum of all the different uses of energy in the building. So everything from heating to cooling, running the pumps and fans in the building, even turning on the lights and running the computers in the space. That all gets added together and divided by the square foot, and from that we get the metric EUI, which again, appreciate being mentioned. The reason we talk about this is because this gives us a kind of level playing field to compare buildings against each other. And it also gives us a goal, kind of a measuring stick that we can try to reduce that EUI and have the least energy use possible for a building. We can go to the next slide. So as I mentioned, the goal once this loads is to do a net zero energy building. And so basically that means taking our EUI, reducing it as much as possible, and there we go. Reducing our EUI as much as possible, and then offsetting that energy use with on-site solar production. So by the end of the year, it averages out to having no energy that's being used on-site. So that's a dramatic reduction in energy bills, and typically we see that's the kind of the lowest life cycle cost over a 30-year time span of a building, which is kind of oftentimes what we look at. Any savings beyond that continue to add up as well. And with that, we've started running some numbers based on kind of typical schools in Rhode Island. The average school has an EUI of just under 70. And again, lower is better for this. So code minimum school built today would be around 50 EUI, and then a net zero targeting school is trying to really be as efficient as possible, so you can kind of reduce the amount of PV that's needed to get that goal. Targeting about an EUI of 25, so you can see dramatic reductions from what kind of would be common practice. We've also got the two existing schools on there. You can see an EUI of about 40 and 52 or so. It's important to note that those are only heating, and they don't have space cooling, and they also, for the most part, and they also don't have the kind of code minimum ventilation requirements that we have today. So if you were to add those into those two schools, you would actually see a dramatically higher EUI than what they have today. So I think it's important to kind of look at this in an apples to apples comparison and understanding, we really need to have the better air quality for students and kind of look at those all together. So at the end of the day, looking at, if we can reduce that EUI down to 25, offset it with solar panels, you're looking at really significant cost savings over the lifespan of the building. And I'd be happy to answer any questions about energy or any other topics on sustainability.
Ken, what are our next steps? With a public forum coming up next week, and I believe there's another building committee meeting towards the end of the month. Do you know when we'll be able to see any more information on what we want, or when you will be closer to
Yeah, we are planning on having more information, more detailed specifics on how much solar could be required with the EUI 25 building, and certainly get into a little bit more information on that. We'll be talking with our engineers and making sure we build that case a little bit more specifically for, based on both this project specifically, but also recent examples and how we've actually achieved the results that we say.
So at what point in the project do we look at the roof and kind of figure, the roof can take X number of solar panels?
Yeah, we can start making kind of estimates now, and but of course, as we develop the design further, we'll get closer and closer to our final number. We can certainly have a good idea going into it whether we're in good shape to have the net zero target. And I can say, just based on our experience and rules of thumb, with partial 2, partial 3-story building, it's definitely feasible in this climate.
With our orientation of how the building's fitting, I know I've heard you mention that a number of times.
Yep.
How important that is.
Yep.
Any other questions? There's going to be a lot more information coming and some more specific numbers. We're just not quite ready yet. We're getting there.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. All right. What's the number on this?
So this is just we're keeping in the overall, oh, sorry, we're looking at one thing. No one else sees it, okay. So we just have the site as a reminder of, we're about to go, Joe's gonna walk through some of the updates to the
Yeah.
design. So we have at the front end, some of these site drawings that you've already seen, just to orient everybody. And then we also have the plans that block out the spaces on every level of the building, and then he's gonna go into the overall updates to the design.
So I think that some of you have actually seen these drawings, either at the forum or some of the things online, but I think what I'd like to do is walk you through kind of the high-level stuff. And this is a work in progress, right? So these drawings and this building are currently being designed and developed as we speak, as we move towards our deadline. So I just wanted you to know that these are sort of snapshots in time. And the next time you're gonna see this drawing, there's gonna be more information and et cetera, et cetera. But generally, the layout is, as you're seeing it, the building footprint obviously has to be off of the existing building. We cannot build on the old footprint because that building has to remain operational and safe as we're constructing the new building. So as part of our work and part of our thinking is that we are developing phasing plans. We're not quite ready to show you those. Those are gonna take a little bit more time to develop, but there is going to be an interim plan that it's gonna show what this building's gonna look like once we finish the new building and the old building is getting ready to be demolished. But generally, we're replicating the same number of fields that are there right now. We're increasing the parking dramatically. We're providing very, very long queuing lines for buses and parents, and we can never have enough queuing line for parents, because as more and more parents drop their children off and pick them up, that line seems to get longer and longer every year. So the advantage we have of putting the building deep into the property is that we do have these very long queuing lines, which helps the overall circulation and the amount of time that parents have to spend dropping off. And what it also does is it prevents traffic backup on School Street, which is a huge concern for any school when we're talking about dropping off and picking up children. Same thing with the bus. We're starting to hear the number of buses and the types of buses, and we feel that we have plenty of parking. Most likely the geometry of the bus may change a little bit. We may try to change the shape of that, but that's all stuff that's gonna happen in the future. But generally, it's a very good site plan. Begin Park amenities are completely preserved. Anything that we touch is going to be replicated and in fact enhanced. Typical example of that would be the baseball field. It's actually in a better orientation than it is now, and it's actually out of the wet area. So it's actually made a drier, better field. Same thing with the softball field. But that generally is our intent. We've had a lot of discussions. We've given Mike, the designer, our principal, a night off, but we've talked about how the building is subdivided into private or private academic spaces in a 3-level block, and in the blue, more public assembly. And it sort of fits in with the way the geometry of the site works. The academic areas are close to the quiet part of the site, wooded, nice to look at, and the more active spaces are oriented towards the front and towards the ball field. It kind of makes a lot of sense the way they're oriented. Layout is very simple, very straightforward diagram. It really consists of a main street that runs north-south. Entry is very clear, and the circulation is very direct. Good for supervision. It's also good for gathering of children. We're going to show you in a couple minutes what the stair here in the middle looks like. There's this stair common. I just want you to sort of think about that. That is really the heart of the school. And we've got a little sketch that we've developed, a kind of a view of that. You're also going to start seeing what this building looks like from the outside in terms of materials, colors, textures. And you're going to see a lot of photovoltaic panels on the roof so that we take advantage of that roof surface to help generate power and overall reduce the amount of energy we have to buy on an annual basis. But the plan is very simple. On the right-hand side is all the public spaces, consisting of the music, auditorium, gymnasium, service for the gym, and then cafeteria, kitchen. Very, very clear arrangement of spaces along Main Street. On this side of Main Street, we have art rooms. We like having art on display, and we also like the idea of having the art as part of the courtyard. Oftentimes, students go out there for sketching and drawing in nature. It's always nice to have that. This part of the site is sort of the supervision and the administrative block, which includes administration, the eyes on the entry, guidance, and then the nurses station. They sort of work together, and they're in a good position in that building. Down along this edge is some special ed spaces, and they become a suite. Also, it's very important to have the nurse, guidance, administration close to some of the sped spaces. And then this is our sort of repeating 3-story classroom block, which is really made up of 3 teams in each block. Remember, each team consists of about 4 classrooms, 3 classrooms, and a science room. Well, that module is repeated on 3 levels, and what it helps do is break down the school into smaller schools of about 300 students apiece. And each block have these commons that are at junction points where it helps break up the overall scale of the building. The arrangement of the building does create a courtyard, and one of the nice things about the courtyard is that it's completely secure, 100% enclosed, but it does provide this outdoor learning space and this outdoor activity area that is 100% secure, and it's also observable. There's corridors with glass that look into it, and how it's ultimately designed is still in production. But it makes for a very nice arrangement, and it also provides multiple directions for students to travel through the building. Now, earlier there was a discussion about security. One of the advantages of this particular arrangement is that what we can do is we can close off the academic wing, and we can keep the public side of the building, the community space, open with strategically located doors that will prevent people from moving through the building. That seems to be a very effective solution. We've done that in many, many schools so that after school activities can come in the front door, they can circulate into the auditorium, gym, or even cafeteria without actually having to go through the academic spaces or the upper levels of the building. Works very well, and people seem to like it. Just so you know, there's also other doors that are not necessarily shown in this diagram where the building can be accessed in different directions. All right. So that's the ground floor, some images. Upper floor, as I said, the classroom is a 3-story block. There's one piece that's a 2-story block, and it's a very special part of the program, and it consists of the media center and 3 technology spaces, which sort of work as a suite. There's a world language here, and there's that stair commons. This is repeated on multiple levels. And then the top floor is here. So that's basically the diagram, and as I said at the beginning, this is still in development, so you will see these plans change and morph and get better and better as we go along. But they are a very good diagram. This is really a conceptual perspective of the building. So what you're looking at here is your sort of a bird's eye view. This is the entry with a canopy. Remember, we had our parent drop off here, and we have this bus loop here. Here's an existing field on this side. This is that new softball field. The baseball field is down here. Existing baseball, and further off the page is McGinn Park. But generally, this is sort of the feel of the building. The 3-story block is near the wooded part of the site. The courtyard is here in the middle. Art rooms. This upper level here is that special media center with the maker space and the robotics. There's an outdoor learning space that we're divisioning just outside of that space, kind of a special place for outdoor experiments that can happen out there as well. And then these are the big box spaces here on this side. You can see there's a lot of PVs on those roofs. This is a view actually looking at the building from the parent drop-off, the sidewalk that you see here, parents wrapping around, the buses beyond. And you can see, kind of get the sense of the building. The glass, a lot of glass is on the upper floor. Bottom level is pretty solid. Got adequate windows. You'll see in a perspective that we have a lot of glass looking at the courtyard. The outside bottom is pretty solid. You know, we do that intentionally. Still big windows and still good views, but not a lot of expansive glass. The upper register's got a lot more. And we're envisioning a brick product for the outside. This is really a beginning sketch of the inside of the building. Remember I mentioned that stair in the heart of the school? So just to orient you, this is looking down the corridor towards the cafeteria. Behind you in this view would be the main door, the main lobby. And up here is the media center. And this is sort of a stair seating arrangement that overlooks the courtyard that we're envisioning would be really a place for children to sit, wait, talk, read books, things like that. Makes for a nice device connecting the bottom level with the upper level. I think it'll be a very nice feature in this building. And then we have a little video that we'd like to show you. Some of you may have seen this. Again, this is very early, and what you're going to see is kind of a bird's eye view coming down the driveway, and then panning back and getting a bigger perspective of the proposed plan. So this is the flying car video. One thing we want to say about the site, it's a spectacular site. Much of the wooded area will remain wooded forever, which is going to be a fantastic thing for students to look at. And the setting of this building is really going to feel like it's in a very big park. It's really quite a unique building. And again, we're preserving all of McGinn's features. That's not changing, and that's not going to be negatively impacted. And you can see we have a gazillion PVs on the roof because we want to make sure that we generate as many kWs as possible, so Mike's electric bill goes way, way, way down. Any questions on any of the architecture? What we've shown, again, you've got a lot of development to go. And there'll be more and more interior perspectives as we go on.
I just had a question about the parent drop-off loop.
Yeah.
Is it two-way traffic on the way out, or would they be coming through the faculty parking lot to leave?
No, the idea that this is a two-way, so the idea you come in, spin around, drop off, and back out. And the stacking would be along the edge. There's also the option of the parent coming parking and escorting the student out, and then coming out and then out the door. But again, we have this very long driveway that allows all of that stacking in the afternoon. Morning drop off, no problem, right? It's the conga line, you come in, you drop, you come in, but it's that afternoon parking when parents get there early, and there's some socialization sometimes, and somebody wants to park here and get out, and so there's some flexibility there.
And correct me if I'm wrong, there's an elevation change between the proposed parking for the school and the McGinn Park parking. I know it may be tough to tell here.
Yeah, Mike, that whole refinement is not quite there.
Yeah.
There's another feature that we want to point out. The field is actually a little bit below the building. The field is like around 36, 37, and the building is around 41. So what's not depicted here is there's going to be a slope where a bleacher can be set up. And so the service driveway along this side of the building is going to be up by the building elevation. And so you'll be actually looking down on that field. It's going to be quite a nice relationship. Kind of a natural, amphitheater there. Yeah.
Oh, there's one. Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, just a comment that a teacher made, and in terms of restrooms, the location of restrooms. She's been a teacher a long time, and she said, kids are sneaky, and you like to be able to, as a teacher, be able to have a view of where the restrooms are when they go to the restrooms, so you can, and she felt that this was really would not make teachers feel assured.
Yeah. Well, again, there's a certain level of detail that we're not quite there, but, you know, Mike, the designer, has provided in each of the neighborhoods separate boys and girls rooms and separate teachers' spaces, so that teachers are not walking, 17 miles, that it's all sort of in that neighborhood, because we don't want long travel for those conveniences. We want teachers and students to have those conveniences close by. So that's sort of part of the neighborhood classroom design. Once we get there, we'll have a little bit more conversations about the type of doors, whether there will be doors, whether they're lockable, those kinds of things all have to be developed. And by the way, everything in this building is accessible. So inside, outside, play areas, amphitheaters, parking spaces, all that stuff is going to be part of the basic DNA of this building.
Thank you. So I'm actually looking at the conceptual perspective as opposed to the video. So what I'm looking at is the drop-off, where the parents drop off their kids.
Yeah.
Okay. So and again, this is the perspective and this is how I'm going to speak, because
Yeah.
if I were, say, dropping off or picking up my son, okay, I'm not just dropping him off, he gets out.
Right.
We've got to stop, pull over,
Yep.
open up a ramp. So, which, according to this, looks like you could pull over and do that. So the question would be, though, what about traffic for all of those other people? Is that going to hold up the line? It's easier to see, so it's where that little circle is what I'm looking at. There's sort of like a green grassy area in the middle.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell from there, is there room for a car or cars to pass if somebody is dropping off their child and needs a little bit extra time?
Yeah, Mrs. O'Christie, right? O'Christie?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, what's not shown here are the accessible van drop-off areas, or that level of detail, or even handicap parking. So these diagrams do not yet reflect those, but typically in our schools, we will provide that. So there will be accessible van pull-off areas that will not clog up the other circulation. That's going to be a very, very important feature. There may be also some other drop-off areas for accessibility needs that are also not quite yet reflected in these plans. So I don't want you to think you're not going to have that, but that's going to be part of the overall plan. It's actually a requirement from the state that we provide those spaces.
Okay, so as one in my citizen's comment, what I would urge is that those not be relegated to the back of the building.
No.
So that, and sometimes, and I'm not saying that that's the case in the schools, but sometimes if you are somebody who requires a handicap entrance, it's not the most convenient.
Yeah.
So that was, and then you said for the bus, so that would be the same thing, the mini buses would be separate from the drop-off for the larger buses.
Correct. So,
Okay.
so in this building design, there's one front door.
Mhm.
So everybody comes in. Now, in discharge, at the end of the day, there may be multiple doors that are open, so we haven't gotten there yet, but in this particular case, the arrival, everybody comes in the front door.
Thank you.
I really like the center stairway idea. I just, when it's finalized, just to make sure that there is the dividing rail between an upside and a downside, and just seeing how wide that area is makes me a little nervous that they will go, students will find 5 across, and those in the middle, there's nothing, to hold on to. So just potentially adding another rail in the middle and then shifting. I love the seating idea. It just makes me a little nervous too, if it's too easy to get to the other side, that there will be a lot of like skipping the last 3 stairs. So just defining like what's the stairs and what's the seating. But it,
Good one. Say, this makes
perfect,
extra.
perfect, yeah, and making sure that, because it, just defining up and down is, I think, really important in terms of graphic.
Good point. Yeah, we wanted to make
Yeah,
student
yeah.
events
Yeah,
there,
I
right?
like that.
And that blue area that you saw, I don't know what's going on with the TV. It's just, did they cause that?
No.
Yeah.
Are we getting the show maybe?
No, we got a couple more slides. Oh, there you go. Okay. Go back, a couple slides. Yeah, there you go. So, yeah, this is still in
Yeah,
development.
yeah.
This is still a very early sketch, but the idea that the architects had was that there would be, an information screen there that's part of the experience, so that announcements could be made there. And this becomes really the heart of the school. What we like about it is the view is into the courtyard, right? So it's sort of a way of activating the courtyard. The kids are gonna be seen from the courtyard and also see what's happening in the courtyard. And what's most important about that is it begins to connect the media center space and what's happening up there with the ground floor, because we want that to be a destination for all of the grades. This is really gonna be an exciting space when it's done.
Mr. Costa, you mentioned that there were, not on this, I'm just gesturing over there because that's where the picture was.
Yeah.
You had mentioned that there were going to be more doors that appeared in
On the
one
floor
of the
plan?
diagrams. I don't need you to go back, but I just, would it be fair to assume that everywhere there's a staircase, you're likely to have a door when you hit the first floor?
Yes.
Because it seems to me like you're gonna need a lot of them in
Yeah.
the event of an emergency, so.
Yeah, none of those are really quite shown yet, so there will be a number of egress ways, pathways. Of course, any assembly space has to have its, multiple egress ways. So for example, the gym is going to have some doors that lead directly to the outside. None of those are shown. The way we control egress and access will also be developed. Obviously, we can't stop anybody from leaving the building in case of emergency, but we certainly do control people coming into the building. Typically, once students are in session, there's only one door that a visitor comes to, and that's the main door.
Right.
And how that security sequence and, security glazing and all that stuff, that's all being developed, but typically what happens is there's a vestibule and the person comes in, is allowed into the vestibule, and then directly into the main office, so that they're escorted or they're picking up their child and leaving the building. All of that's part of the DNA of the public building. Yep. Okay, you want to talk about the schedule?
There's a question, is there more questions?
I just had a, just not to belabor the door thing, but we're talking about 900 kids. Right now, Davisville is about 430.
Yeah.
And with 430, we utilize 2 doors for exit. We utilize 3 doors for entrance. Just FYI. I was in part of the process of Lincoln Middle School being built. They had that one long hallway. That school was about 850 kids in that hallway. It wasn't ideal, I'll just say that.
Understood.
And we're talking 900 students and 900 middle schoolers who, we like to touch and whatever. I just think it's important to remember to have more than one entrance for drop-offs, buses, parents, and for end of the day dismissals. We learned the beauty of that through COVID, and we've maintained it. Even though we have staggered dismissals per floor, we still utilize, 3 exits for entering and then 2 for exiting. And that's for half the number of students. Just saying.
Yeah. great points.
Yeah.
We're not quite there.
Yeah.
But we will get there. Yep. We recognize middle schoolers, we recognize, lots of children going to their buses or getting picked up by mom and dad. And that'll be part of the overall plan. Yep.
So something that actually I just thought about because of some of the public comments. We do show the schedule, and the schedule in terms of opening of the school in the fall of 2027 is only relates to the middle school. The district has 5 years, not 3 years, 5 years to complete the entire scope of the work in the bond. So from the time of the invitation from RIDE to participate in the program, in the necessity of school construction program, which is part of the stage 2 application, which is due February 15th. The invitation happens in May of 2024, and then the district has 5 years, which will get the district to 2029 to complete the entire scope in the MOA, which can include the middle school and the other district-wide upgrades that we were talking about. So that's just maybe a misconception, so I think we may want to edit that schedule going forward. I didn't think of it, this was relative to middle school only. In the 5 years, we do plan to complete to open the new middle school fall of 2027, and then demolish the Davisville school during probably summer of 2027. So the demolition happens during summertime when students are not yet in the building, in the new building, and then the site work can happen during the operation of the new building, of course.
And we did discuss, we were talking about how there would be phases, and
Correct.
We don't have those phases in development right now because there's time for that. That's not something that necessarily would be provided right now in any construction plan for a new school, but there would be phases of development that would show when the new school is opened, demolition of current Davisville Middle School, the site development of the parking, so that way all of that is ready for the opening of the school.
Correct. So a phasing plan has to be submitted in a draft form to RIDE with the stage 2 application as part of the checklist. There are quite a few items that go into stage 2. It's not just a form. There's a lot of things, but there's schematic design drawings and phasing plan as part of that requirement. Of course, it doesn't have to be fully defined. That gets defined when the construction manager is on board. However, an idea of that will be developed with time. Some immediate timeline dates to remind everyone of is the October 12th, forum number 2, October 18th, early voting, November 7th is the referendum, February 15th, ultimately the deadline for stage 2. Any questions? Anyone?
Any other questions at all? On anything? All right. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, this will be available, we're gonna submit it to post it, so it's already posted, Mike, or you're fast?
Put that up, the geotechnical report is up, so everything is on there.
Fantastic, thank you very much, everybody.
So the next item on our agenda, we wanted to discuss some of the resources that we're working on. There's a frequently asked questions document that we're working on that our plan is to have some of that available by the end of this week. It is a working document that we're doing. We also want to touch base on the public forum that is happening and just discuss any other related resources that we'll have available and be able to share. You want to talk a little bit about the frequently asked questions?
Sure. So, correct, so we are working on a document. It will be a list of questions that we think maybe have not been answered well enough or maybe not defined. Some of it will be basic information that has been already discussed and reviewed in all the various meetings, and some of it will be new or clarifications that we do think are important to convey. I do think that this is probably going to be our first, maybe there's going to be a multiple or issues of the frequently asked questions. We will, because the question list is growing, we do have a lot of information already available, so we want to issue that to the public and take some of the public comment questions into consideration, and then possibly take more questions after forum number 2 and issue another version, reiteration of that, so issue an update to maybe new questions that come up.
Yeah, it's our goal that it's going to be a working document. We're basing the questions that we have in there now, that we're working on questions that we're getting from the public and that people are asking, and then any other additional questions that we get, we'll add to that document, and that way we can upload it. It's going to be located on the school department's website under the school facility project page. It'll be there. We'll put a link out on our Facebook page as well, and we can share it as well, so that way it's there.
And the placeholder's already there.
I'm sorry?
The placeholder is already there, it's just on the document to attach. So it's coming soon.
And then we have the forum that is coming up, and that's on October 12th. I keep saying 14th, October 12th. October 12th, and that's at the town hall.
Yes, I was gonna talk to you about that afterwards, but we can turn to Joe, we can talk about it now if you'd like. So it's at town hall, I think it's, is it 5 o'clock? And so I guess, I know you and I had a brief conversation. I thought the high school worked out wonderful. I think the town council chambers will work fine as well. But I didn't know if there was the whole idea was to have one at the town, one at the school, but if there was an interest, if you felt that the school worked out so well, and we're expecting a large crowd, we could always pivot back to the high school auditorium, So, I think I was gonna talk to one on that, but I don't know if anybody has any thoughts.
The only concern is that if there's any information that has been sent and people think it's in the town
Yeah.
hall.
Town hall's fine, I just thought that, so please, I mean, I would rather have it there, but I thought it went so well at the high school auditorium, and, you know, and just, you had 60, 70 people, and it was spread out, 60, 70 people, town council chambers would be fine, but, you know, well under our limit, but, if our concern is the fact that information is out there, then we can stay consistent then.
Yeah, I would agree with that just because it is what we put out there.
Excellent.
And
Then let's stick with that.
I think that would be good, just
I
as
agree.
another option and location for
Great,
us,
so 5 o'clock at the high school, at the town council chambers, sounds great.
Same format.
I wanted to talk to the superintendent about that as well. No, not at all, please, not at all. I wanted to get his thoughts and see if he wanted to change things around, so.
Let's just double checking the time. Yeah, we can talk about that later if there's anything that we
Yeah.
want to change, or if there's, I don't know, if there's recommendations from the building committee as far as how the public forum 1 was organized. And I think
That's-
we talk about maybe
Flipping it.
flipping
Yeah.
like the schools going first, and
Sure.
then the safety complex and the center, we could do it that way.
I wanted to defer to you on that. So just let you, so I looked at the video, and I started a little late. The rec center had about a 12-minute presentation with about 18 minutes of Q&A. So somebody followed the direction, did 30 minutes. And then the public safety had about 18 minutes of presentation with another 18 minutes of Q&A, so about 36 minutes. So it wasn't too bad. And then, of course, the school. So afterwards, I talked to the superintendent, and if there was I wanted to defer to you. If you felt there was a benefit to having the school go first, we're more than happy to sit back and wait. If you felt it was good to just get the 2 smaller ones out and have school go second, that's fine too. So your call, and we can go from there.
Yeah, no,
We'll do either way.
Yeah, we can do that, and we can do the school first, and then we talk
Sure.
about adjusting our presentation a bit, just, because it was longer, and we were looking at maybe putting more pictures and words in there, and that way, there's visuals while we do some talking, and that way, the presentation's already out there, so if anyone's looking for it, it's available to be seen, but we did discuss adjusting that a little bit too.
So school first.
Yeah, we can do that,
Excellent.
that sounds good.
And then I guess the only other question I would have is, I made 2 residents ask me about this, so that's not a mandate. On the forum information that we sent out, did we also put the time? We put 5 to 6:30 on the cards?
Yes.
It is good enough,
Yeah,
okay.
times are on there.
Okay.
Just 7:10, 5, no.
At 5 to 6:30, because at first we thought it was a half hour each.
Yes.
But that's okay. I
yes.
guess my only point was, if the school's going first, the 5 o'clock hour, I wouldn't want us to be criticized for having it at 5 o'clock. But it's out there, it's 5 o'clock, we have 2 forums, plenty of information, so it sounds great to me.
Will you be able, will you be able to stream it?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect, not a problem.
And if you give us that link, we can post it on our website, so anybody who's used to going to our website for our meetings, we
Will do.
can link it right.
You got it. So good, sounds great.
Thank you. And then we just had anybody talking about other resources. We do have drawings being created for being put on poster boards, and that way we'll be able to put the image of what the outside of the proposed new middle school look like, as well as the site design. So those boards are being put together, and we are planning on putting them out in all of our school buildings. I don't know if it's something possible we can talk about if we want to put something like that down at the town hall or other town buildings. But
Definitely.
we'll have additional boards and easels that we can put up around town.
Would love to do that,
So-
okay, great,
And that's coming.
good,
So,
excellent.
any other resources or things that we should be thinking about getting out there, putting out for people?
The town will be putting, by legally required, an ad in saying when the election is, where the polling places are, what the questions are. That's standard, so I have no need to share. It's all legal, and our bond council's going through it. We're working on a mailing to the residents, something we do whenever there's a special election. It's just tough, there's 3 questions, normally it's just 1 page. And so we're trying to put together the most pertinent facts. Once I'm done with that, I'll share it with you. If there's something that, or share with everyone, and that is something on regarding the school that you want changed, we can change that. Our goal is to get it to the printer next week and mail well before the early voting, but we're running out of time, so.
And in our FAQ, we did list the actual question for question number 1, so people understand what that question is. The FAQ doesn't have any specific questions on the safety complex or the rec center. I mean, if you wanted to, we could add that in there, but we just kept it
Okay.
specifically to the school at this time.
Right, now that I know, what we could do is, and again, I'll send it through to you to review, but you've only put about a half a dozen facts on each project, so maybe the 6th fact for yours would be visit your website for the FAQ. That'd be perfect, so, good.
The only other thing I would just want to announce as we're talking about the, advertisements, sorry, to say that, resources and what we're putting out there for the public, to inform the public. We are also doing middle school tours next week. We announced it at school committee last night. And those middle school tours are happening next week. It's Tuesday at, starting at 6:30 at Davisville Middle School, and Wednesday at 6:30 at Winford Middle School. And we announced it last night, but we'll get that out and put it on our Facebook just to advertise, and it's open to anyone in the public to come in and see the schools. We're also putting a video together. We put together a video of the inside of Winford Middle School specifically, and we're taking pictures of the schools, and that's going to go up. And then next week, I don't know exactly what day next week, but next week, we'll be working with Perkins Eastman, and we're gonna put together a very short interview, video clip, and that way it's just another piece of media that we're putting out there about the information regarding the school project. So we're trying to put multiple ways of sharing information and for people to see this information. So any questions or suggestions, or comments?
I just, so the policy subcommittee has been handing out fact sheets at open houses.
So I will comment on that as soon as you're done speaking.
Okay, so all I can say is the reception has been great as far as people really appreciated having a page of written information. So if you can do the best of the FAQs or whatever, all I can say, I have no magic. How do you reach people? I have no idea. But to hand out a 1-page printed information where people have been very, very appreciative.
So we had some information we had put out ourselves from the school department, and we'll have this information available as well, because the FAQs can be available at the schools. I did have to write a letter that I will be sending out probably tomorrow in regards to outside organizations being on school property during school events, handing out anything related to what the work we're doing and ballot information. We do have a school committee policy on commercial advertisement. The letter's going out, and I do need to contact the two organizations that are passing out flyers. It's what I understand is the NK Democratic Committee from the town, and also members from the NK Megabond. Both have been out putting out flyers. Our school committee policy does prohibit that because it's school property, and no one is supposed to be on school property passing out anything that is political in nature or has to do with a ballot question.
Okay.
So that I will be getting that out tomorrow.
Very good. Well,
But
thank you.
Give me that opportunity to mention that, but we do have a policy, and I have to make sure that we're following policy in districts, so.
Is it possible to give out flyers, say, at the sports fields, where, you know, kids with their parents, they're practicing?
So our policy is on school property.
Okay.
So it doesn't speak upon town fields. Our policy is very specific that on school property, that no person should be handing out information. It goes into other types of information as well, but bullet 3, letter M specifically states anything that's of political nature or political candidates or ballot questions.
didn't mean to create more problems, but
It's okay.
all I can say
Taking
is
care of that
the
hopefully
more
this
you
week,
can
get it out.
do simple, don't discard the importance of a one-page sheet of information. All I can say is that it was received very well.
And we're working on other information that we can get out,
Yep.
because as the school department in town, we have a responsibility to inform our members of the community with factual information. You cannot put anything out that's political or says to go vote or what they do. It just has to be information regarding the reason why we are proposing a new middle school, the reason why that we're proposing updates and building repairs and replacements across the district. So, and we'll be getting, as part of the FAQ, where we're getting that out, so thank you.
Thank you.
Kind of on that same subject, I appreciate the letter going out from the town, because I think that's one thing that I've heard is that a lot of communication is coming from the school end, but not so much from the town, so I think that's important to go out to all residents. But the other thing that I've heard is a lot of the information is being communicated via social media, and not everybody is on social media. So is there any way in advance of the upcoming forum to do a more old school notification? Because it sounds like that letter is not going to be out, and that's more general, information, just kind of like maybe sandwich board, type of thing, just letting people know about the forum so that people who don't know and might not get the information via social media are made aware of it in time to come.
So I know that, so the mailing will be extremely generic, limited, just trying to get something out there. So I don't think it's, regretfully, I don't think it's gonna be.
I don't think that fits
No,
that
but
purpose.
I don't think it's gonna be this,
Right.
oh, thankfully we sent out, it's not gonna be that
Yeah.
regretfully. I wish we could do more, but nobody would read it, so.
Right.
As far as promoting the forum, I'm open to suggestions. I mean.
Like, you know how you do, like, with the town concerts, you put the little sign across from town hall, like maybe by the chamber of
So
commerce?
that's actually there.
Is it
It's
there
now,
about the
yes.
public forum? Okay,
It's
so
there
one is the
across from
north
town
end of
hall about the forum.
Okay, what about the north end of town?
Where would there normally be one?
I don't,
Okay,
like, in front of the chamber of commerce maybe, like,
Okay.
somewhere where people who are driving around might
Sure.
see it and go, oh, I didn't know that
Yeah.
was there, can I stop by?
Definitely, but I have to find a good spot for that, but
Okay.
definitely.
Are any of the grocery stores, do they have any, are they community partners that they might be willing to put up, one of the sandwich boards or something with information? Because there's a few in town, but I feel like you would get a lot of people who are not involved with the schools.
We can reach out and check. I mean, I know Dave's is very good community-wise, so we can find out. I guess I guess we just need to find out, because we have one today,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
So, yeah.
Weekends are big at the grocery store.
Yes, I know, we gotta figure out how to get a sandwich board in time. I'm sure it's pretty easy, so.
Well, one of the police signs says.
That I
slow
don't know.
down.
That's a good question. I was thinking when Jen mentioned, that's the first thing that came to my mind, and I'm not sure if we've ever used it for public announcements. and I'd be a little bit concerned about crossing that threshold, but it's not out of the question. Yeah. Yeah, it's
I'm
not out of
wondering
the
if we're
question.
just informing, we're not, saying
Right,
to
just-
people how to vote, we're just
No,
informing.
just, I think we're
them,
even,
this is
NK
coming up.
Forum, October
Yeah.
12th, Town Council Chambers, 5 o'clock, something like that. But I did, again, I'm a little bit concerned about that, but it's not out of the question. Because you can imagine the number of requests we get at that point, and so, but it's not out of the question. Let me look into that, definitely.
Thank you.
Is your reimbursement anything like that? In the future? So it's not.
Yes. Yes,
Is that a possible, again, factual?
that's the code red.
Yes.
But it would be fact, it would just be, there's a forum at, I guess, so, let's talk about that, that's a good point. Let's say we found out that we could do the code red. Now I'd have to say, I know we advertised, but we may want to go to the high school auditorium. Because there's thousands of people who get that notification, thousands.
I think it's switch, I think as long as we get information
Yeah.
out there so people know that we're changing the
Yes.
location.
And maybe that's the point of the code red, we're changing the location to the auditorium.
Yeah.
So that everyone.
Having a sandwich board, and that's all fine. Once you send out a text or to 5,000 people, I say move it to the high school auditorium.
And we did send it out from the school department, but it did seem, in looking at the crowd, it seemed like there were maybe more non-school aged parents who were there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
your point is well taken, that may get more.
yeah.
people.
I mean, does this committee feel that we should look at something like code red? I mean, again, I want to look at the parameters to find out if that's
Let's see
appropriate.
if it's allowable, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Make sure it's
I mean,
allowable
so I don't
before
know.
we do something like that.
Okay. I don't know if it is.
And we'll use our, and we can send stuff up to our
Okay.
communication system, because it's just a meeting coming up.
Okay.
I know the code red is a different type of
Yes.
system. so-
Yeah, you signed up for, I need to find out what you signed up for. I want my solicitor to look at exactly what Jane and John Doe signed up for. And so, if it's for emergencies and all of a sudden they get something like this, it's like we've done water breaks, we've done stuff like that, we've never done anything information. And not saying we shouldn't, but that's a good point, so I will look into that. Okay.
Any other suggestions? Next is our next meeting date to the. Thank
Right
you.
behind you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.
It's October 25th.
Do we have that? Yes, we did. I had a question about that,
Okay, so our next meeting of the building committee will be October 25th at 5 p.m. We just need a motion to adjourn. Motion, second. Everyone in favor? Okay.
Adam,
Thank
any
you.
attendance? Thanks.
So are you in the lot?
I know, Jody.
Are you on the long driveway?
Yes, I
I said, next to you.
Yeah, I know.